The procurement storm. Are there calmer waters ahead? With Brexit, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, all leading to increased prices and soaring inflation, there is a very real procurement storm happening as we speak. So, to understand the dynamics of the situation and to understand whether there are calmer waters ahead, I recently spoke with Duncan Levey. Duncan is a care sector procurement expert of many years and is a consultant at Expense Reduction Analysts. My name's Simon Parker, and I'm the founder and chief executive of the Care Leaders Network, which is the professional community for the leaders of care organisations. We're on a mission to help our members to build remarkable care organisations, and a big part of that for me is being the host of the Care Leaders Network podcast. So here goes for my conversation with Duncan Levey. So, Duncan, how do we get into this mess? And crucially, how do we get out of it?
Yes, not the easiest question to answer, but yeah, it is a bit of a mess, isn't it? It's a perfect storm, really. Three major contributory factors all coming together pretty much at the same time, and everyone giving us a good kicking, really. We've had Brexit, we've had COVID, we've had war in the Ukraine. And all of these things have come together to hit in a particularly nasty way. We've got inflation at a 41-year high, as everybody knows. It's been driven by massive energy price rises, a really sharp rise in demand post-COVID as supply chains were hit. Energy's really been driven by the war in Ukraine, which is totally unexpected. As we came out of COVID, and we're all looking for a route to recovery, which hasn't happened in the way that we wanted to. The early Brexit impact actually has had a weakening on the UK economy. Predictions are anywhere up to sort of 5.2% reduction. And in real terms, that's £31 billion out of the economy at this moment in time. So not insignificant. On the back of all this, there's a workforce crisis fueled by Brexit and also by COVID. There's not the numbers of overseas labour people around for supporting particularly the care sector and hospitality. We've got COVID. A lot of people have not rejoined the workforce post-COVID, deciding there's different ways to work and other things to do. This has all combined to bring about a food crisis in both availability and in prices, supply chain issues, and good grief, we've even not got tomatoes anymore. You know, what happened to our tomatoes? Never known a tomato shortage before. So all sorts of things happening that we don't recognise. So yeah, it is a mess, and there's been a couple of own goals, there's been a couple of run outs, but not for me to commentate here on what's happened in government, but Liz Truss, and that's all I'm saying. And that's been difficult too. So the way out, well, the good thing for the social care sector, of course, is that the demand is at the highest levels ever. So demand is there, which is a real positive. The government have been completely lacking over a number of years in the social care sector. In fact, a number of governments trying to raise the quality that we desperately need in terms of financial support in all sorts of different ways. But there is at last a recognition that social care and the NHS need to work together and can work together. And that's starting to look significantly better than it has done for some time. But so the demand is there. There's a bit more willingness to work there at the moment. But owners and directors need to be smart. They need to examine all the options that are out there. There's shortage of resources in all sorts of different areas, and there's some really good expertise out there that can help and are willing to help. So there's a lot of help and expertise to draw on. So overall, I'm positive about the future. And I'm also positive it's going to be difficult getting there, but we will.
Thank you for the summary there. I think those kind of the three big contributors to the circumstances that care providers are experiencing at the moment You described it as a perfect storm. I guess they always say that bad things happen in three. So hopefully we can see the tail end of things. Although I guess how the inflationary set of circumstances, apparently that's going to calm down at some point in the next six months. Heaven only knows what's going to happen with the war on Ukraine. You'd like to think that we've seen the back of COVID. I think everyone's massively bored with COVID, and that hopefully that'll be kind of part of a bygone era. But all of this stuff has an impact on profitability and of the care organisations, driven by the cost, of course, of the products, the services, and the workforce, of course, themselves as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot to get into here. Can we talk about some of the kind of typical procurement challenges faced by providers as it stands at the moment? Because there's probably a few things that are going on acutely as it stands today.
Yeah, for sure. And indeed, you're right. There are. Everything's affected. You know, the energy inflation and the knock-on effects from that inflation. Not only have a direct impact on the care homes themselves, but of course it affects everybody who works in the care home. It affects them at home. It affects everybody who supplies the care home, which is a challenge, because you've got supply chain issues for the suppliers. Driver shortages have been reported. Recruitment for the care home is also at a time where it's most difficult, both at all levels, not just at carer level, but also in management and across the whole board of recruitment for care homes. Energy costs rising at levels never seen, which has completely blown the budgets for the care homes. It's not easy to pass these costs on. People are in contracts with local authority, or indeed they've got to be so mindful of occupancy levels being affected by rising fees. And occupancy levels are unpredictable at the moment. There's been some recovery, but it's patchy. And generally speaking, occupancy is a real challenge. Talked a little bit about recruitment already, but this again makes it all very stressful. So what should the care operators be focusing on? Well, it's simple, really, in that you need to focus on the areas that are hitting you hardest, and not to leave stones unturned. That's easy for me to say. And in the heat of the moment, with the pressures loading themselves onto the limited resources that the care homes have, makes the job even more difficult. I find it makes it very stressful. But again, because of the ongoing pressure on pricing, that has a knock-on effect, on other areas of other input costs, such as insurance. That's gone through the roof again, and even the cost of borrowing so much higher, so that being leveraged at a higher level is not at all uncommon, and that too is a challenge. Because everybody's spending so much more on their energy, then actually it's the creditworthiness of previously really solid businesses has been called into question, because instead of spending whatever £800,000 a year per home, or whatever it is, depending on the sort of business that you've got, that's now looking at least 2.5 times, if not 3 times higher than it was just as we were approaching the war in Ukraine, which is just over 12 months ago now. So yeah, a real challenge in every area, and a lot of companies are trying to manage this on their own, and that's really tough as well. As I said before, there is a lot of outside help and expertise available. We're encouraging conversations with our clients, more so than ever before, because there's more to share, and there's more ways of tackling the problems that the care operators have got. So you're not in it by yourselves. There's networks like Care Leaders Network, which bring together this was born out of COVID, wasn't it? This was a WhatsApp group to start off with. So yeah, great cooperation, and the fact that the numbers are where they are show that people really appreciate that all these different experiences being drawn together. That's not gone away. We've actually got more problems than we got in COVID. So it's good that we've got the formats and actually more willingness and more technology to help us jump onto calls and share experiences and look for what is best practice, because that's one of the things that I'm really going to focus on is coordination within procurement. Look for best practice and don't leave anything unturned. Don't just focus on the biggest problems, because it all contributes.
I'd like to take a moment just to say thank you to one of our sponsors, who are Moneypenny. So Moneypenny are the leaders in outsourced calls, and they support hundreds of care organisations by delivering brilliant conversations on their behalf, by providing you with a dedicated receptionist from their specialist care team who are on hand to help out with calls and chats whenever you need them. You can find out more by heading to moneypenny.com. Sure. Yeah, I guess it's those 1% improvements across the board. That's the compounding effect of 1% improvements over time. It's obviously Warren Buffett, who's obviously not done too badly for himself, who refers to compound interest. If it's working in your favor, it's the eighth wonder of the world. Which obviously he's as I say, he's done pretty well for himself. So I think he's probably a worthwhile person to listen to in that respect. You mentioned, I guess, almost, or alluded to some of the dangers or risks of taking the approach where care providers are trying to manage all of this stuff internally. I guess we've been creating some content recently, and we've got some workshops around how the role of the finance team is evolving over time. There's so much stuff that's happening in that respect as it stands today, with a team that's often, let's be honest, no care leaders. I don't know any care leaders that aren't time poor. There's an awful lot of demands on people in leadership roles. So being able to work with a partner in this respect, of course, that's it makes an awful lot of sense if they're able to help deliver some of those 1% improvements, if not potentially more. Talk to me about what could potentially go wrong if you haven't got that type of additional resource, and I guess what are the risks of doing so?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think anybody would argue too much that two heads are better than one in many of these issues. But the trouble is, the strategy of going it alone is probably not what a lot of organisations start out with. But because there are so many problems that are lurking at the moment, it's very easy to be able to be overcome by the amount of work that's in front of a procurement team at the moment. Whilst going it alone might not be their strategy, it ends up being the reality, and with all the firefighting that presents itself. And the danger is that you end up missing out. You end up being reactive rather than proactive, and it's probably not the intention, but it is the end result, or it can be the end result. So, of course, it's usually best to be on the front foot and meet things head on. But I mean, for instance, I saw a lot of companies agonising over what to do when the energy increases first started coming through, and they ended up putting decisions off in the fond and certain hope that things were going to recover more quickly than indeed they did. And so many organisations will have wished that they'd have committed early to, yes, higher costs, significantly higher costs, but not the end result that we saw. It's starting to soften a little bit now, but October, November last year, October particularly, was probably the height of things. Things could have been put in place 6 months before that, and would have been a better looking situation. But hindsight's wonderful, and perfect vision. So it's making the best of the situation that we've got now. A lot of operators will look at contract renewals that they've got coming up on all sorts of services, anything from phones through to photocopiers and lots of maintenance contracts and things like that. Maybe they're coming off a 3-year deal, and they'll think, oh, okay, right, okay, well, they'll pull the fire out. And when did I last look at this then? Well, about 3 years ago. It's actually just been a little bit more in the forward planning stage. You want to get as much information about changes in technology and lots of these things, and maybe you'd like to examine a few new suppliers but don't know quite where to go. And if you leave it until you've got that sort of 3-month window to the end of the contract, it's very easy to do not a lot different than you did last time. And maybe you're sending your request for proposal out to 3 suppliers, maybe the same 3 suppliers that you did last time. And you're reasonably happy with the devil that you know, which is your incumbent. So you wait until the proposals come back, have a look who's done the best. Probably share a bit of information with the incumbent. He sharpens his pencil a little bit more. Sign another 3-year contract, put it in the drawer, breathe a sigh of relief, and move on to the next problem. There's ways to broaden the width of suppliers that you're looking for, and there's definitely ways to modernize the tendering process. There's ways on which you can draw on the experience of people who know the market from an independent point of view, who can go to the market on your behalf, very much with your best interests to the fore. At a time when resource is stretched at the moment, then that might be something that's well worth considering. Many of these organisations, like ours, like Expense Reduction Analysts, operate in a way that gives a view and a perspective that is difficult to gain when you're only looking at these areas once every 2 or 3 years because it's contract renewal time. And that sort of shared experience and shared expertise is something that can shorten the amount of your management time that's involved, increase enormously the options and the views that you can get in order to make an informed decision, and then the implementation and the monitoring of that is looked after it for you, and that allows you to get on with your strategic planning rather than the tactical execution of implementation. So yeah, it's easy to get bogged down. It's easy to get immersed, but there's some really good solutions out there with support, with the best interests at heart of the client.
A quick word about one of the sponsors who helps make the Care Leaders Network podcast possible. Bevan Britton works in partnership with the social care sector, delivering high-quality legal and regulatory advice. Their award-winning teams across the UK provide workforce, regulatory, corporate, commercial, real estate, and litigation advice, and their team truly believes in strong partnerships. They really understand what it takes to deliver outstanding care and to build a thriving business. To find out more, head to bevanbritton.com. I guess having a partner to be able to help with all of that type of stuff kind of helps. It allows you, you mentioned obviously broadening your kind of spectrum of supplier opportunities to be able to go and speak to. And I guess in doing that, you're kind of getting on the front foot. Again, coming back to the point around the fact that most care leaders are time poor, it's just an inevitability of the sector, and probably increasingly so with everything that seems to be going on at the moment. Being able to have a partner that can look at things probably before you get to a point of getting round to looking at them, having somebody that can be kind of a little bit more proactive, rather than that, to your point, the kind of, oh, we've got 3 months of the contract left, like a bit of an oh shit moment, kind of thinking, oh God, we've got to get our act together. And then I guess even in that set of circumstances, because you're naturally going to be under more pressure because of that particular scenario, because of the pressure, I know that I would probably be more prone to making a snap decision because I don't have that much time, and I feel like I'm forced into a bit of a I've got limited options, so I'm making the best of what's presented with me in that moment, and that might be an okay option. It might even be a great option. But is it necessarily going to be a great option? Are there other is there other potential from other suppliers or with different kind of contract structures and things like that as well? Because there's it's not just the product and the price. There's the way that it's paid for and all that type of stuff as well, which of course can be extremely beneficial. So so the Care Leaders Network, we're a carbon neutral organization. We're actually working on becoming a we'd like to use, I guess, Brewdog as an example of an organization that's managed to become carbon neutral to the extent that they actually take out twice as much carbon from the atmosphere as they put in to run the organization. That's something that we're planning on doing this year. So sustainability for us as an organization is something that's super important. I think it's incumbent on all organizations, all people, to be mindful of their carbon footprint. We're because everyone's home based, we haven't got an office. Our carbon footprint's relatively minimal anyway, but I think it's important for us to do our bit. And I think particularly with there are certain financing options and things that are now available to people who have an approach to sustainability. It seems to be something that seems to be kind of picking up speed and things like that. Talk to me about sustainability as a major consideration for providers these days, and then like how can that be built into the procurement strategy and the supply chain and things like that? Because that's I can imagine, well, certainly from what I've seen, there is an increased number of providers who are minded to focus on this type of stuff, and I think that number's just going to keep going up and up over time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We're in a really good place to build sustainability into the procurement process, and I think procurement's got a major role to play in providing sustainability in all sorts of different ways for its own organisation. Sustainability isn't a different thing to if you're putting a new fleet of photocopiers in, or putting a new fleet of cars in, or putting new telecom systems in, or IT, or even in the way that food, for instance, is procured and managed. There's not really a sustainable version and a non-sustainable version that you've got the choice of. Everybody's looking for improved efficiencies. Everybody's looking to reduce carbon footprints. I think the confusing area within all of this is that there's this label of sustainability which arrives on new product launches and what have you. That it's almost treated as a separate thing, and the suspicion is that you're going to be paying more for it. Whereas with true sustainability brought into your processes and therefore reflected in your request for proposals and the way that you source your new services, then you should be doing things in a sustainable way and projecting that sustainability into the products that you're buying. That way, that's delivering improved efficiencies, giving yourself more options to future-proof the services and the equipment and the technology that you're utilizing to support the businesses, your business, in an ever-increasing way. So building sustainability into your tenders is a really good place to start, and making sure that your suppliers are operating in a way that helps you operate and prove that sustainability is an outcome of being efficient in the way that you procure, in the way that you stock, in the way that you use staff, services, and products that are actually being bought by the unit. And you really, once you start applying the bottom-up process, it's the outcomes look after themselves. And it's like in lots of operations, you save a lot more money by reducing your input costs than actually by trying to produce an increase in profit from rising prices. So to start at that input end of the business rather than at your customer end is also a very strong way to support the strategy that you're trying to bring in. Sustainability wears many different hats, doesn't it? It's very easy to identify areas in building costs and building management where you've got opportunities for sustainability and efficiency, and that's a really good area where you think, okay. A lot of people say to me, "Yeah, I've done that. I've got LED light bulbs and solar panels on the roof, but that doesn't touch hardly any of it." The energy management side of it has got many different elements, and then all the servicing of contracts and management of contracts, management of your heating. All of these things all contribute, and again, that's your Mr. Buffett comes in at that point, and it all grows together and brings an outcome that's an accumulation of all the incremental gains. So very round. I guess what I'm saying there is that yes, it's not buying one thing in a sustainable manner. It's having everything wrapped up in a sustainable envelope. And one of the things that I get very excited about, because I'm a food specialist in my project work with expense reduction analysts, and food waste is we all see these pictures of food being thrown away, and there's all sorts of examples of what food waste might be. Is it a quarter? Is it a third? Well, it's certainly bloody high, whichever number it is for you. There's lots of efficiencies to be gained at the front end. So how you buy it in the first place. So control the way that you're purchasing your food. Control the way that you're prepping your food, so that you're not throwing away at the preparation stage anything more than you absolutely need to. And then how much are you wasting at service time? Are you piling the plates up so high that it turns the residents off? Turns the appetites down, and then you're throwing loads away at the end of the service. There's lots to be said for preparing food in a really attractive way on the plate. People can always ask for more, and it's really amazing sometimes just how you see a lack of thought in food presentation within the dining rooms, and that's a big thing for me too. And then even when you've got your waste from all of those different areas, you get charged again for chucking it in the bin, because so often the refuse collectors now increasingly charge by weight. Food is one of the heaviest waste materials that you pop into the bins on a regular basis. So there's not a step in meal preparation and food disposal at which there aren't opportunities to make really sustainable savings, and that's a real hobby horse of mine.
Sure, no, it makes sense. And I guess you've got the overall consumption of stuff, whatever it might be, managing that, probably the easiest route to cost savings almost immediately. And of course, some people will do it brilliantly, and some people there's a bit of work to do. But no, that's really interesting. And do you think, okay, so talk to me about challenges and opportunities for us to round up on. Talk to us about the challenges and opportunities for the care sector, particularly around the digital space.
I think there's, as we have said already, there's lots of opportunities out there. There's lots of ways of gaining efficiencies. There's lots of ways of using your resources in a better way, scarce resources as they are as well. So I think the opportunities for advancement in the digital space are enormous. Some are going to happen because of regulatory requirements. Some are going to happen because of efficiency gains. and both in terms of cost and also in terms of staff utilisation. Give you a few examples, for instance, electronic care planning. Up to the beginning of last year, still more than half of care homes were using care planning as a paper-based exercise, which brings all sorts of challenges. Now, I think it was Sajid Javid, when he was Health Secretary, announced that he wanted electronic care planning to be largely in place by the end of 2024. And certainly there's an awful lot of movement been made in that space. You've only got to go to any of the care shows and see lots of new care planning tools that are available. That's fine, but how do you separate what's good, what's great, and what's just doing what everybody else is doing? So again, a helping hand in that direction is extremely useful. Recruitment, talked about recruitment and retention of those who have been recruited is also a real big challenge. So there's lots of digital recruitment tools out there, not just recruitment in terms of applicant tracking systems, but real strong psychometric development where you get into a space where you're recruiting people who have the attributes and the skill sets to fulfill that role, and actually reducing the amount of people you need to interview, and getting a more sustainable result from the people that you interview as well. So lots in the digital recruitment space to really benefit what's going on. And again, these are all areas that I work with and that expense reduction analysts work with in order to support our healthcare clients in the best possible way. There's resident and family communications and resident security software out there that's it's taken off in the States in quite a large way. It all contributes in helping reduce risk in the home. That word risk pricks up the ears of insurance companies, and if you're reducing risk, then chances are you're reducing the cost of insurance renewal next time round, as well as improving other things as well. So again, that ticks back to the sustainability routes we were talking about. Massive advantages in advances in telemedicine and telehealth services, particularly relevant in domiciliary care, of course, where you've got remote patient management, but stepping into the care home sector as well now, and that's a real opportunity for advancement, better care for the resident, and giving you the opportunity to use your staff in a more efficient way, but without losing the personal touch, the human touch that's so important with carer to resident health. What else have we got? Staffing software, yeah, loads of it. Roster management and linking up to Sage software for payment runs and everything like that. Lots of ways to improve your use of staffing out there, and really difficult to keep up to date. A lot of people say to me, "Oh yeah, I did that. Put one in 5 years ago." The changes in the last 5 years are enormous, So so that's where you need that future proofing, the ability to update systems and really take an eye for what's coming around the corner. It's not about what's the cheapest on the marketplace. It's what's going to be still helping you have run really efficiently and improve your business in 5 years' time. And it's a good way to look at it. And that things like procure to pay and stock control systems have been around for a long time, but the improvements in those and the way that they integrate into other areas is massive as well. So very, very few areas that can't be improved by the application of the right technology in the right way that's scoped for your particular business. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. It is. Yeah.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. So look, really helpful. I think broadly speaking, what we're talking about, it's a good news story. There's plenty of pressure, but with the right support, people can navigate this well and look for those incremental gains. So Duncan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights and things like that. I'm sure people will be keen to connect with you to talk about how potentially you could help them with their care organisation. So thank you very much for your time today.
Delighted to chat. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.